Hi, welcome to Tales from the Sky Lounge. It's a podcast about business, consulting, and venture investing. We get out there in the world and we talk to people who are making it happen and we get their stories. If you can like and subscribe, it makes James super happy. Today's guest in the Sky Lounge, John Church. Hi, John.
Hey, Todd. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's good seeing you again. So, John, who are you and what are you working on?
I'm John Church, and I'm a lead product manager for Nethermind, which is a research and engineering company focused on blockchain and general deep tech. So we have research and focus on cryptography, AI, and generally attempting to be on the cutting edge of technology. We focus very heavily though on blockchain and AI.
Very cool. Yeah, you and I met, we were working on a real world asset, tokenization project together, which was pretty cool, maybe a little ahead of its time. How did you come to get into, the whole crypto, space? And crypto's not just Bitcoin, right? It's a whole lot of other interesting things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So initially I got involved in crypto in about 2017. From just a speculative standpoint, I got involved and I additionally, I have my story of my friend telling me about it in 2013 and talking about Bitcoin, this thing. And I go, oh, that's a scam. Don't worry about it. Like, nah, I won't. And he says, oh, just buy a little bit. I was like, no. And I regret those moments, in my, when times are frustrating. Got involved in 2017, just from a speculative standpoint. Got involved in the ICOs, and okay, that's interesting. Value starting to be accrued to tokens, and around 2020 though, I got deeply involved. I saw use cases start coming online, like swaps starting to be done on the blockchain. Um, you know, I'll I'll high level just a little bit. I won't go into too many details, but I started seeing like swaps and money markets and like financial primitives showing up on chain, and at the time, yields and like involvement in those things was crazy. Like you could get uh, heavily, like extremely high yields on tokens that were debatably liquid, and so got involved, and went more and more deep. Then got involved in the something called the DAO space, which is decentralized autonomous organizations, aka how do we make a company on chain, or how do we make groups on chain with different equity arrangements or ownership arrangements. So we tried these very democratized organizations on chains called DAOs, and it was very viral because if we gave equity to everybody, lots of people were suddenly very incentivized to work very, very hard. And so at the top of our DAO, or at Bankless DAO, we had 20,000 people working on any different number of things. And I was part of a group of leaders. I was part of the engineering and dev guild. And I also worked in the treasury management, where we managed the monetary policy of the DAO because we had our own token, and how do we incentivize people. And so I was part of all these conversations. Uh, the DAOs had a life cycle. We learned a lot, had a lot of fun. Also learned how not to do things. And then we, out of the DAO, we formed a consultancy, and the consultancy is where I worked with you, and then and now I find myself at both Nethermind and I teach as an adjunct professor at Duke University.
Professor Church or Professor Ice Cool.
That's right. One of those is, yeah. My pseudonym was Ice Cool, and it was really funny actually, because for the longest time it was really interesting in the DAO space. I'd work with people like, my name was Ice Cool, or my pseudonym, and pseudonymity. It was a meritocracy. So what happened is that I measured people more on the output that they did versus their history. And so a lot of people found that as like exciting ways to reinvent themselves, and like, come into the space and be measured not on their pedigree, but on like the output. And it was really cool because it created this really interesting labor arbitrages, because like we were in the United States, or at least I was in a large chunk of our DAO, but we'd have workers in like India or Africa, and like we had a group that would created a newsletter, that had a number of viewers, and they would pay those people, $200 to do an article, and for them, $200 was quite a large amount of money in
Yeah.
US dollars.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, it's cool. So economic professor brain, looking at all these economic primitives that we don't think about because, hey, they're up in a bank somewhere, or they're, at some Fed meeting, or, we're kind of able to recreate those things. And then, you're talking about staking tokens on a chain. Maybe, a lot of listeners aren't super familiar with what that is. Everybody knows what Bitcoin is, but like, what's a Solana token or an Ethereum token? How do you stake it? And then what is that?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give just some like high levels. I'll exercise my capacity as a professor a little bit. Yeah. Importantly, money is a social technology. So what blockchain does is it allows you to innovate and create new functions and stores of value via the technical underpinnings of the blockchain. And so that's allowed, in 2020 people to speed run, because initially there weren't money markets or different things on the blockchain, but they kind of speed run finance and go from, how do we do a swap? Great, we've got swaps. Well, what if people have like large chunks of value? How do we, like, what if other people want to borrow that value? Oh, okay, they borrow it, and for a fee, they pay a fee back to this pool, which generates yield if people put money in this pot called staking. And so I might pool some of my funds in some a smart contract, which is a component on chain, and some people may pool collateral and take a loan out against this larger pool and pay me for offering my assets and generating yield. And this yield is distributed to anybody that does this. That's just one primitive. This gets much more complicated. We could talk about creating the economic security for a chain to make sure it's safe, like how Bitcoin does that, how Ethereum or Solana does that. But ultimately, the thing that I find most interesting about all this is that it enables innovation, because people can jump on chain and mint a token right now and interact with people and do things that would otherwise be very difficult. Positive and negative, fully got to acknowledge, like people have used this very illicitly and negatively in some cases, but I think there's a lot of positive innovations coming out of this. Name like one of the number ones that has great product market fit being stablecoins.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about stablecoin. So we talked about the swaps, right? So like a dollar yen swap, has a float rate. So if you can go, everybody talks about that yen carry trade, becoming unglued because reasons, right? Japan is doing things with their interest rates, and it's better to have dollars than yen now. But people could go buy or borrow yen for nothing, like zero interest rate, right?
That's
And
right.
then go swap it to dollars, and then go buy something interesting.
Yeah.
And
doing Forex arbitrage, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then so you can now do the same kinds of things in a virtual world. But you're the bank and the lender and the, and you don't even have to know who you're lending to anymore because it's all math, right?
Yeah, that's right. And again, I think that's the problem. Like, so this is all getting speed ran by builders and technologists and engineers, both institutions and people building in the Web3 space, which is the crypto space. For those that don't know, Web3 is read, write, own being the blockchain enabled component. And so there's a number of teams that are working on either being service providers to institutions for KYC, AML, know all these people that are providing assets. Institutions are working on it as well. And then there's DeFi actors that are trying to ensure, like one of the things I'm excited about is enabling privacy in DeFi while still adhering to regulatory requirements. Making sure that the funds you're deposited with, like there might be a number of funds, none of them are OFAC sanctioned or North Korea funds or what have you.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to enable drug smuggling or money laundering or any of that stuff, right?
Yeah, none of that. That's right. That's right.
And that's kind of where it unzips, right? And then, like, I remember a couple of years ago going to Permissionless, which is a Ethereum centric conference out there in Texas. And the whole shop floor of DeFi degens, was
That's right.
there's money, and it's really interesting and really cool, but it was kind of academic, right? Where people were just kind of forcing the issue to loan each other money, and yeah, you're getting interest, and it was cool, but at some point you got to pay taxes, right? And at some point there's a bank involved, and then I got to move 50 grand from Fidelity to Coinbase or to what, and then those are registered entities, and then like there's just no way unless you're just going to be purely out there on the blockchain.
That's right.
And I think you guys learned that in your DAO, right? So everybody had to pay you in crypto, which was really cool in theory.
That's right. Yes.
But boy, what a pain in the butt. It's a barrier to commerce at some point.
It was a tremendous barrier to commerce. Yeah, it was very difficult, especially with like Silverbank and some of the like the targeted impact that happened even while we were working together. It's people getting, for whatever reason, different heads of government or SEC or rotation. It's been a road for sure.
So talk about Silverbank. So they were important because they were the one bank that you could bank or put into custody your digital assets, your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, whatever. And that's important because if you have large amounts of money as a hedge fund or whatever, and you can asset allocate, you have to do it professionally, which means there's certain rules, right? And then we can't be sketchy about this. We have to know. And then it has to be in a custodial account. And they were the only game in town for a minute, right? Because
for a good long minute, yeah. Because they were willing to be risk on, and so they took on that risk, which ultimately bit them. But yeah, they were for a time they were the only bank in town, and ultimately we got to play by the rules at some point. And there's this ethos, I think, in crypto sometimes of like this, buck the system, cypherpunk. And I do think that's important because, like DeFi, if anything, like the current conversation in like the Clarity Act around stablecoins, I think is really positive because banks are having to compete with a new financial product, and it's forcing a conversation about, should depositors get yield on their deposits?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I think yes, that's right.
But they don't.
No, that's right. They don't.
Yeah.
And the incumbents have a kind of privileged position that DeFi is forcing a conversation around, which is great. So now, we have a saying in crypto called "not your keys, not your crypto," and so I'll say, my assets, my yield too, please and thank you. So I'm happy to see like discussions in this happening in this regulatory environment. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then so let's talk about stablecoins, right? So they were kind of boring for a minute. I think we haven't. There's a lot of disruption for a couple of years there. It was like, hey, you really need to not like leave stuff on an exchange because they'll rug pull you. And it was like kind of this like every 6 months something weird would happen.
That's right.
Feels a lot has stabilized in the last couple of years, maybe 2 years.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's so I think, it's like, so along those lines of like, not your keys, not your crypto. One of the problems historically in blockchain and just sharing and generally, was that, exchanges may become insolvent. They may be operated illicitly because they sat at a place between traditional rails and new rails. FTX was an example of this, and so
and they had the yen carry trade going on in the background, right?
That's right. Yeah, right. That's right. Well, and it was so interesting because SBF was considered one of the smartest guys in the room, and like lots of like just had this aura of smart. And then if you peeked at his accounts, and it was a big mess. So for a long time, self-sovereignty, which is one of the core kind of ethos of crypto, is like you own your assets, you keep them, heavily prioritized. Don't store your stuff on exchange. It's not safe. It could be rugged. You could have them stolen. The exchange could go down. Very, very true for a long time. Honestly, up till, like you said, maybe a year, 2 years ago. Now, with the regulatory environment we're in now, and I still think there's some risk, but if my grandma had crypto, don't keep it. Don't keep it on yourself. Don't keep it on, especially if it's a material amount. And some of my crypto friends might shun me for saying this, but when you keep crypto on you, you take on the security risks of a bank. And this is some of the positives that a bank has, is that I don't have to worry about the gold bars in my vault down in the basement because I don't have one.
Yeah.
Or I don't have to worry about the security, like making sure my security guards are paid. The bank takes care of all that. And this has unfortunately actually been kind of a trend lately in the crypto world, is that there's yield, there's innovation, there's opportunities, both speculatively and otherwise, but also there's a lot of risk. And there's been a rise in something called wrench attacks, where people find out someone has some amount of crypto and they go visit them locally and encourage them to share those things with them in a unfriendly way.
Rubber hose cryptanalysis, right?
That's right. That's right.
Give me your password.
Right, that's right.
Well, so like going back to that permissionless conference, the DeFi DGen floor, as long as there's tiny amounts, there's lots of interesting academic things going on, but I felt like it didn't really kind of rise, and it was like just too decentralized. But then you go in the back room, in the professional, institutional rooms, where everybody that was the major Wall Street banks was talking. Holy heck. I mean, they had it ironed out. And I thought, how interesting, where the banks themselves, so you have a New York office and a London office as an example, but it's the same bank, Bank A, right? But they had to settle intra-bank, so they're technically two different, profit loss.
Yeah, two different ledgers,
but they were doing it on their own blockchain, and so they were, cloning, public blockchains and then running it for themselves, and that turned out to be way more secure, way faster, way everything. And then so like the math's there, right, and the primitives are there, and I think it's how do you marry all this stuff with the real world? You still got to be a person, right, and you still have to have identity. You still have to.
That's right.
There's security and auditability and all that stuff. It has to be a corporation,
right? And this kind of edges into, because I think there's there's stable coins and the how that's really nailed a use case, because that's usage in Africa and especially in countries where rule of law is less strong, or the monetary infrastructure rough. But then these new thing, so there's one of the things I focus on is zero knowledge proofs, and the our products associated with that in Nethermind. And so right, we have to enable identity. The problem is that now, okay, I'm sending my identity to all these different people, and data hacks happen, data loss happens. And so I'm kind of focusing on ZK as zero knowledge proofs are a type of cryptography where I could share, this is my identity, and I could prove to you I am 18 without sharing my address, height, weight, all that extra stuff, but I would just prove to you this one component via cryptography. And so then you only know that bit, and say you do get hacked, I'm not exposed with all these other components. It's still privacy preserving. And so that's one of the things I'm kind of focused on in the cryptography space, or in the blockchain space, and how do we implement products like that to support institutions. And AML KYC would be, this person is indeed a citizen of this country, without exposing all this other stuff to third parties. Governments, of course, fine, but you get the idea.
Well, yeah, old crypto nerd, right? So, there's the certificate. We all trust Amazon or whoever this year, and they issue a certificate authority, and they issue certificates which sign things, which sign other things, and we all agree to there's a root of trust, and then versus the PGP, I met you, and I'm going to sign your thing, you're going to sign my thing, and then I only trust people, if you can sign somebody else's thing, I know Ice Cool, so you must be okay.
That's right.
So it's kind of this weird. There's kind of different ways to skin the cat.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's too much decentralization is good. It's good mathematically and in theory, but it's pain in the butt factor. So there's practical things.
Decentralization is overhead, and it slows things down, and it's just additional. But again, it's like, how do we in a digital space create ownership that isn't just stored on one person's and on a server that could go down on like an S3 on Amazon. And that's in some ways what trust, value, ownership is in some ways what a lot of blockchain enables. So
stablecoins. So I think there's some news, I saw Circle, right, was maybe selling out to somebody, or there's a transaction maybe. Have you been following all that, or
no? Honestly, no. Tell me. I've been paying close attention. AI agents and stuff like that has been. What's the latest with Circle?
No. Well, so it's who owns it, and then a stablecoin is tries to be the same value every day, right? Yes, but then they have to have some kind of underlying asset, gold or U.S. treasuries or whatever. It ultimately can't be stable for every swap on the market, right? And then you're talking about Africa, where in the United States, a stable coin is worth $1 and that's the peg, but in Africa it could go all over the place, and and a lot of times because they have depreciating local currency, how fast can I get it into the stable coin?
Yeah. I was wondering if there's some controversy or something, because every time I turn around, I'm like, oh no.
Well, yeah, maybe I'm speaking out of school, but I don't know. I was hoping you could tell me, but the XRP crowd's kind of getting excited, and what happens if Coinbase buys them? What happens if somebody else buys them?
Yeah, so I know XRP has their stable that they're working on, and then I mean, just highly I think one of the really interesting things about stables is how much adoption it's had, and especially and I've really been excited about how in this regulatory environment, how much the United States has gotten on board with some of it, because it is an extension of whatever monetary policy that pushes it. It's like $1 always has to equal $1, and the company that issues the USDC as a stablecoin always has to be able to redeem usually more over what they call being over collateralized, i.e. it's like they've got more assets in the bank than they have USDC issued, so that if there's a run on the bank, they still they can make everyone whole.
Liquid.
Yeah, totally liquid. That's right. But yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting movements in the stablecoin, but just a tremendous amount of adoption all over the world for I think I was talking with a gentleman from EY, and he was pointing out that USD stablecoins are used in the total stablecoin market are 99.99% of all stablecoins used and issued. I'm seeing some inroads from Europe to start issuing a euro stablecoin.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're getting the memo, actually, and I hope to see competition there too. I'm very pro capitalism and enjoy competition.
Yeah, and when it all kind of collapses into one big thing, and it's it's good, but it makes you nervous, right?
Yes, right.
Because
right.
then what happens if that all unzips? You have nowhere else to go.
That's right. That's exactly right.
You talked about AI, and agents, and where all that's going. I had an interesting conversation last night with a venture guy. He was concerned with the future of commerce, and I showed him, hey, I was doing a little research in my Claude desktop, and found the best little mini PC to buy to hang on the wall to do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it, and then it said, hey, do you want me to pull up the Amazon link? It went shopping for me on a bunch of websites.
Yeah, and
crazy. It was just right there. It's how do we get agents like that? That's a trivial example. I always talk about two Teslas going down the road and they want to negotiate. Hey man, I'm in a hurry. Can I bribe you to pass? What does the future of all that look like? The payments, is it surely it's not Bitcoin. For you $60 to give you a nickel
Yeah,
to be able
that's
to
right.
pass, right?
That's right.
What do you have your eye on? For where's that like going?
Yeah, so I'm gonna give you my biased opinion, but I think directionally I think I'm gonna share directionally, and then I'll share my biased take on some of this. I think the biggest thing is I see markets getting extremely efficient and just increasing in speed, and I think that'll be a byproduct of both blockchain markets, which include prediction markets, where you could say people are based on their prediction markets. Just really briefly are places where people can bet on the outcomes of different things, but when they reach a certain size, they start to generate information on because of people's profit motives. And so you can see, like, maybe somebody has some inside information and they're betting on something, and you see like a strong bet in one direction that starts to give off information on, say, whether, I don't know, what the temperature is going to be tomorrow, or whether some coach at a basketball team is going to be hired or not. And so these things happen anyway. So this is giving off lots of information, and then agents, I think, as they aggregate all of this from just a purely speculative viewpoint, start to buy and sell, like, from a profit motives thing component. And I'm not even going to talk about the or I guess we could talk about lightly the um art general, or AGI, and
AGI? Okay.
yeah, some of those fears. But yeah, I think categorically what I see is that previously everything had, like, programmatically, things had to be deterministic, which means it was like a clear outcome. And now we've got non-deterministic actors, which are agents acting. And so what they can do is they can take on an aggregate of information and have different outputs at different times, versus deterministic, it's always the same output. And so now you've basically got qualitative activity happening via agents. And so, right, they could act on like a car, but you start being able to have, like, variable outputs. The clearest thing, I think, is that markets becoming very efficient. So I see lots and lots of people, basically building their own Bloomberg-like terminals, um, and then setting their agents to act on behalf of those terminals. So I'm forecasting that um, you know I don't know, market movements will become more stable, I hope. I'm not sure.
Smoother,
Yeah.
better information, less choppy.
That's what I'm assuming. This is my take. And then, of course, it's what is all this gonna occur on? And my biased take is that I believe this will all occur on Ethereum. Although Solana is an excellent platform, very high speed with their architecture decisions. And then there's a number of them. There's just, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, like I went to the Bitcoin conference out in Prague a year or two ago, and then everybody wanted to do everything in Bitcoin because reasons, right? And then I was like, all right, I got my Lightning wallet, and then let's go buy a beer in Prague.
That's
It's
right. Yeah, of course, you got
five minutes for a hot, a sausage and a beer, and it
That's
was
right.
like it was fun, but like, yeah, we're not, this is not ready, right? So. Are we getting closer on any of that stuff? Solana the answer, or are there other things out there that
Yeah.
you got to try on?
Yeah, so I'll speak to some of the scaling approaches. So and I'll dig into just a little bit on some of them. Solana's is very fast, but Solana's architecture is very heavy, and so making sure Solana functions in you need enough validators with enough hardware, which is like petabytes worth of storage, a tremendous amount of RAM. Like their validator set makes them to some degree centralized. They would probably chase after me with pitchforks and say, no, Solana is definitely decentralized, and then I would look at that in comparison to Ethereum, where Ethereum has hundreds of thousands of validators and is truly decentralized. I think the big thing, and is just the difference between these two, is Solana's pushed really hard for, if you tried to pay with Solana, it would have settled, immediately, and versus Bitcoin, 5 minutes, because of Bitcoin's block time is every 10 minutes. So there's a new the database for Bitcoin updates every 10 minutes. Ethereum has 12 seconds going down to 6. But the important bit for blockchains is speed's important, very much, very, very true. But security and it is staying up and online is critically important. And so when you get to a blockchain holding the finance of the world, you need to make sure that the distributed validator set is very, 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 very distributed. And I critique Solana and say, their current validator set is not distributed enough. And this is why, I'm a big fan of Ethereum, but design decisions, ZK stuff, lots of technology implementations and different things. The TLDR though is that Ethereum has a lean roadmap that they're pushing that I'm really excited for, and but I imagine for many of your listeners, what's like the cutting edge thing is in some ways it's really important that blockchains become kind of boring, because it's important that they stay up. They're online like a bank. A bank doesn't close, and blockchain needs to stay up, stay online, and be a trustable store of value. And so that's why I'm really excited for a lot of the innovations. Solana has a lot of really cool stuff coming too.
And there's a lot of spears that get thrown your way when you say, well, it wouldn't hurt us to be a little bit more corporate about all this stuff, and not so much anarchy in the weeds, right? And
yeah,
maybe we got to grow up a little bit, and then it's a fine line, right? There's a lot of really strong emotional deep roots on, no, we can't trust the man. The system is the problem, and that's why we did Bitcoin in the first place. There are some benefits. I don't know. It's just a hard thing, right? Because you see the benefit.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think that the problem was that there were no alternatives. You accepted the monetary policies and the decisions of these centralized groups. And with Bitcoin, it's Brian Armstrong said it so well at Davos a few weeks back, as he said that Bitcoin is programmatically defined as its monetary policy. So if you don't like any one nation state's monetary policy, you've got an option now, and that's great. And that's why people like gold too. And that's why gold's doing so well, is that no one group or entity can decide to print more gold. There is only as much gold as there ever will be. And Satoshi in his wisdom said, hey, let's make a digital version of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's brilliant. And then, one of the things that kind of I think about from time to time, it doesn't keep me up at night, but it's like, dang, it was made to be money, a great medium for exchange between us. It's not that anymore. It's like hoarders,
store of value,
treasure, right?
Yeah, and that's right.
And it's like, oh man, it's so close. And then, but now we have, stable coins, right. So maybe it's not the end of the world. I don't know.
And that conversation. So there's this economic idea. It's like when there's really good money, people hoard it. And they use the bad money, and so the good money becomes bad because it's not used. Like you hoard it as a store of value, and that's essentially what and to some degree what's happened with Bitcoin is that so people hoard it because tomorrow it's going to be 60, 100, whatever some odd wild valuation, and not to mention the user experience problems of it takes 10 minutes for your transaction to settle or whatnot. Yeah, but right, we've got alternatives, and I think that's all from an engineering perspective, that's all opportunities. So
do you think my desktop agent is going to pay for my next computer in stablecoins at some point from a wallet somewhere? Do you think we're far from something like that?
No, it's here. It's already here. I've got one of my buddies he's got something called OpenClaw. He tasked it with generating a trading strategy, or I'm sorry, a trading strategy, and it automatically built him a low grade wallet for it to work with. It built it for him, and he just set it loose, and it asked him to fund it for him, and he funded it, and so it's off and running, and so he's gonna check in on it, and see how it's doing, and this is, I'll be real, I get kind of nervous when I see some of that stuff, because
for $1,000 or $500, it's fun,
Yeah.
but like, oh my God, like
Right.
what happens when it gets a futures license and
Right. Yeah, the opportunity to blow money, but it's like the implications for me. It's like wait, why did it build a wallet? Like why did it do these things? What's it trading on? And I think I see reports sometimes where it's like when you tell something to be like profit maximalism, it's like what if it goes off and does something illegal? Like and it's like its job is to just make money. Like whoa.
Well, we set the goals to be fair, and it
Yeah,
is
right.
goal-seeking technology. So
Right,
you,
that's
you
right.
tell it to be a dirtbag and go make a bunch of money, it's going to come up with some really strange things, but
That's
like
exactly right.
perfectly in line with what the human told it the goal was.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Um,
So it's on the person to define the we call it a prompt, but like the context within which it should work, and it seems to just go ham on that context.
so you mentioned Claude we ran across rentahuman.ai. Have you seen that
Mm.
one yet?
No, no,
Or, so
never.
all these Claude bots are doing all kinds of fancy things, and I'm convinced there's a scam here somewhere. But there's just too much press behind it. But so they're doing social, got a religion or something. I haven't seen that one, but the hype rate is real.
Yeah,
But one of the things is hey, I need a human to go do something.
yeah,
So
that's right, right.
yeah.
Human. It's called like rent a human or something like that.
Rentahuman.ai. So I
Yeah, right.
registered this morning, and then I thought about, okay, what's the most like kind of controversial things I could throw in there? Like I start fires, like, and then it was Stripe, and then it was Ethereum and Bitcoin.
Yep.
How do you want to get paid? So I don't know what should I put in the rent a human, or what do you think would be the most interesting skills or most unexpected things that are going to come out of that? What
Yeah,
do you,
yeah. I mean, so
fund my account?
yeah, that's right. That's right. It's and this is where I think like, the like ideas and like your exposure to different technologies and your ability to be creative start becoming really like, because it's like, um, off the top of my head, I don't know. And like I'm like, throw off like I'd say, ask it to pay you in stables because that's the easiest and some of the most liquid in the blockchain market. But I think like what it really seems like is as agents come online and like, low effort, mindless, mind-numbing tasks become automated, it seems like the opportunity is that people get to exercise like their creativity and yeah, it's multiple contexts. I mean, to answer your question though, I think uh yeah, I thought all that was wild, especially with like there's something called Moltbook and which was a like the AI Reddit where they could post. Turns out there's a lot of people posting because it was just like a open unauthenticated thing and people are but there's a period of time there where people going freaking out.
It smells a little scammy, like the early
I
days of
think
crypto,
yeah,
NFT.
100%.
It kind of brings us to what's the future. Your Professor Ice Cool.
Hmm.
And then we talked about your favorite NFT in your Discord.
That's right.
You want to talk about like what your Ice Cool? How'd you get Ice Cool?
Yeah, yeah. So Ice Cool, it's just an old. Honestly, it's an old gaming nickname, and in the DAO days, again, like we'd be pseudo anonymous, and I'd have times where like I'd interact with, in the early days, Bankless DAO was really prominent and sometimes from Bankless Consulting, we'd talk with like a politician or something, and someone would be referring to us, "Oh, hey, Ice Cool, how are you doing?" Or talking with some of my pseudonymous friends, and it reached the point though where I had to become professional and start referring to myself as John Church, and um, but yeah, no, it's so I registered Ice Cool as my I have there's an art community, and some of the things that I really like about NFTs is that it allows people to organize around art in and support their art with finance, and so one of my artist buddies, he made these like funny like stick figure like profile pictures called PFPs. And in Bankless DAO, they became very popular. And if anybody was like an OG or like a long-term contributor, they'd have one. And so we all had one. It was what I really liked is that it allowed me to fund my friend's art, and I'm part of their community. It's called they're called Chippies. If
Chippy. Yeah.
anybody's if
Yeah.
anybody's so inclined, and so I'm still part of their Discord and chat with them. They're all good friends now. So
And yours had the toothpick, so I was
yeah,
like,
that's
all
right.
right.
Mine has that's exactly right.
Cool, Mr. Ice Cool.
Yeah, I just try to be. And then and I think for the future, so just categorically, like crypto, I see a lot of like synergies between crypto and AI, and because it's like AI is very digital, and so crypto allows for like trust and value on the digital layer, and we focus too much on like the speculation when really the cryptography is really novel, and so I think one thing for sure is that despite the up and down, like I was just at a conference, digital assets at Duke conference, and spoke there. Institutions clearly see the value very clearly, and they are undeterred by um, the ups and downs. Like they move slowly, and where in crypto, like we're up, oh everybody's euphoric, we're down, oh everybody feels bad. And institutions have a steady maturity to them that they're bringing to the space that I'm really appreciating. And two, they get it. Like there's deeply sophisticated actors and that really are like I'm hearing very sophisticated thought both on regulators, innovation, infrastructure and engagement on the institution side. And I see, just doing amazing jobs. And I have to, like, Fidelity is just an example, is creating really interesting and exciting things in the crypto space, amongst others. There's lots of institutions.
Oh, cool.
So
So you're in your professorship, you get to talk to a lot of young folks. A lot of people, particularly in AI, particularly in the coding space, everybody's a little bit panicked about, oh my God, all the entry level jobs are going to go away. I argue that, what you need to know going out in the world changes, right? You don't need this tactical grindy stuff anymore. You need like some kind of higher level human functioning, which is probably better use of your brain anyway.
yes.
How are you teaching people to get ready for what's next for the coming world?
Yeah, I think critically fundamentals, like first principles understanding of different things is still critical. Like understanding, just as an example, computer science. My engineers at Nethermind that have adopted AI and are really skilled are now amazing. And they're
Coding tools, that kind of thing?
yeah, coding tools, Claude, Codex, etc. They're going from like their output went from, as just an example, they would spec out like some feature set and it'd be like, 2 to 3 weeks worth of work. They'd get it done in a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so it's like our timelines are compressing really, really, really hard. And we're discovering, like, so one, fundamental understanding is still required. Like you can't just go, hey AI, build it for me, make no mistakes, make me $1 million. Doesn't work. You're setting of that context, and from that wide open context, it'll build anything in any direction, and it makes mistakes. There's hallucinations, just like any junior or mid-tier dev would make mistakes or have misunderstanding on what to build. So like we're still, it's not a general intelligence where it's like, this is the way I should go and this is what I should do. It's still waiting for us to like nudge it and give it direction, like an employee or anything. And so fundamental understanding, and also like creativity, exercising your creativity and your excitement about things, and like seeing what could be, exercising your vision. So fundamental understanding of things. But I think we're moving into a world where entrepreneurship is going to be is going to be widely distributed. Like lots of people are going to be a lot more involved in entrepreneurship, because I was reading just this morning, a plumber built for himself a finance tracking tool and like a distribution, like a task distribution engine that he would have otherwise paid $10,000 a month. He built it for himself and is hosting it for $50 a month. And so, and I think that a massive amount of distribution is going, or disruption is going to happen for kind of the monolithic internet, and it's going to become much more distributed. And so my advice to students is you can't be a cog. You must be an individual with ideas, a vision, and excitement. And you might work as part of a company, but you must understand the technology from a fundamental perspective, and and then use AI to accentuate yourself, move much much faster. And I think that right now we're seeing, like, my best coders still produce code that's better than Claude, but within like a year to 2 years, that may not be the case. Maybe even 6 months if I don't know, it makes me nervous sometimes too. So
Well, and I wrestle with this too. I am pretty bullish on Claude and others. It's getting really good, really fast. And then, do you need to know what a class is in software anymore? Probably not, right? You should never write another router, is what I told a younger engineer like a couple months ago. Um, React router in the web, you
yeah,
should
sure,
not
sure.
be worried about that kind of code. You should
Sure.
be worried about, like, okay, the big picture, like, why are we doing this? And then if you think about it, that's kind of more human. And that's really the fun part of creativity. Um, you can create a lot more stuff in a hurry. And then to the extent that you've done this before and you know what you're doing and you have really good judgment, it only gets better and magnified from there.
Yeah, I agree
So
with
I,
that.
so I love your focus on, fundamentals. We're always going to have to exchange value for money. That doesn't change. The way, the token that we exchange, whether it's a dollar or a yen or a Bitcoin or Satoshi or whatever,
That's
might
right.
change. That might change. That will change, right? We'll cycle through seashells or whatever next, um, and then how do we give it to each other in person on electronic, rails somewhere through, God knows what computer, or directly electronically distributed like that. We still got to exchange the money and be confident in it. We may or may not want to know each other,
That's
depending
right.
on the kind of exchange, right? If
Yeah,
I'm
yes. And
buying a car from you, I probably kind of want to know who you are.
yeah.
Um,
Well, and I think that, it's like blockchain can provide certain assurances via the tech, and this is all the infrastructure's got to catch up with some of the things, and meet the regulatory environment. And I think it just, like, understanding, like, systems architecture on computer science and the like, and like some of the different, um like, those are still important. It's just that, yeah, it's like, use higher minded thinking, and allow yourself, to have fun with it.
all right, going back to the rentahuman.com, one of the things it says is I can't touch grass,
That's
so I
right.
need a human.
That's right.
So you're an outdoor guy, right? And then we kind of share that background. So what is your favorite water filter and why is it a Sawyer?
I think, oh gosh, my favorite water filter, probably iodine.
Okay, so you're an iodine guy.
I'm an iodine guy. I like, um, I just drank it enough that whenever I taste it, I know that, I'm camping and it means I'm on vacation, so it's good.
Okay, and is that like a multi-use
Well, just
minimalism? Yeah.
yeah, just the tablets, and yeah, I've done like some survival scenarios, and I've done a 28 days on the app trail via Outward Bound, and we used iodine. The survival scenario, we actually used this other thing that, like, this chemical, which I'm not sure how good for me was, but I like the
Like
iodine, so check it out.
chlorine or something. Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and iodine you can always put on a wound and nobody's allergic to iodine. So
That's right. Yeah,
yeah.
it's good for my thyroid and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well, and then so why is that important? After I want to say after COVID, we have a bunch of little 2-year-olds running around the neighborhood, and there was always a thriving little kid soccer thing. After COVID, we seem to have lost that, or there's less kids playing t-ball and soccer and swimming and
it's a shame.
like, and then people kind of focus inward or on their screens. Um, you know, talk about like why that's important to get outside and
Yes,
outward bound, and those are huge deals to keep going.
that's right.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, tremendously. I think, what's lost, and it's so important to have community and interpersonal connection.
Well, and then if you're 3 days into a 7-day trek over a hill somewhere, right? Things get real focused real quick. Like, I'm tired.
Yep, that's right.
It's raining.
Yeah,
my feet hurt, and I want something to eat.
That's exactly right.
That's about it, right? And that's all you think about.
Yeah, and that's I love that about that. Because it's like God, I'm like, my day to day is like, oh, is AI gonna take over the world? Like, oh, what's the politics looking like? Oh, this, like, oh, my house, But right, and when you're out on the trail, it's what am I eating? What am I drinking? Where am I sleeping? And do I have to go to the bathroom right now or later?
Yeah, I started running a hammock, so I didn't have to worry about where. I just kind of like, oh, there's a tree. Let's just sit down.
That's a number of my friends love hammocks. I haven't tried them yet, so I gotta. It's on my to do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's about getting out there in the world and seeing stuff. You got any great travel stories other than the AT that you want to share with us?
So I think
Are you got any cool bear stories about the Appalachian Trail, or coyotes, or turkeys?
So I did 20 days in the App Trail, and then 28 days in the Utah desert, which had me absolutely fall in love with the desert. Halfway through, though, we found like, at least just this is a short story, because I've done a lot of travel too with crypto conferences, etc. But I think you'll find this one funny. Me and we had a solo hike, so 4 of us were hiking, and at some point through the trip, we crossed a highway. We were going to cross a highway, and our guide told us that you can, if you're in trouble, you can go down here. There's a coffee shop. They've got plenty of food and a place for you all to stay. So as we're hiking, we're like, plenty of food, place to stay. Maybe we can go ask them for some food. And so we get to the highway, and in this part of Utah is Provo, Utah. You can hitchhike, and it's fairly common. Like, there's a lot of, like, hikers going around. So my buddy and I, before we have to hike 1,000 feet up. So this is 20 days in. I have layers of dirt on me that are, like, multi-layered. So me and my buddy, like, we splashed ourselves. We're coming off of a small river. We, like, scrubbed some dirt off. I, like, comb my hair, and we hike up out, and we hitchhike. And so as we hitchhike, car passes us, car passes. One pulls over, and we go rush. Okay, we're gonna rush over there. And we talk to the person, and we say, oh yeah, we just need to ride up to this place right up here. And they go, are you from the group we were with was BOSS, Boulder Outdoor Survival School? And they say, are you with BOSS? And I go, so I freak. My partner starts lying up a storm, and he hops in the front, and she's like, oh no, we're not with BOSS. Da 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 da. He hops in the front, and she's like, okay, well, hop in. She starts asking these, like, really pointed questions about, like, oh, is this with do you know this guy? Like, what were you doing out there? Did you check in with the way station? And he's earning his Emmy. He's like, he's lying up. So we ride up. She gives us it was called the Kiva Coffee Shop, which was really nice. She gives us some bread, some macaroni casserole. He has himself an espresso, and just a ton of food, which for us, I currently weigh about 190 pounds. I was 130 pounds.
Ooh, wow.
So, like, I was rail thin.
Yeah.
So she gives us all this, and she drives us back, and I'm like looking at this bounty of food with extreme excitement. And she drops us off, and then we meet up with our friends, and we eat. My buddy ended up getting sick, and that was his whole own story. But just to wrap this whole thing up, so we then, so the end of the course is coming, and we have to hike out of the desert, and the place we hike to is the Kiva Coffee Shop. And so as we roll up, there's actually a little poster that says "Wanted, 2 liars," and it was a picture of my buddy and I, and and so we sat down, and they're like, "Yeah, and when you get to the Kiva coffee shop, we're gonna have this huge feast, and you all are gonna be great." And so these sat down, and everybody started getting like these meals that were like meat and potatoes, and which was amazing. You can't understand when you're starving for 28 days, and you suddenly have like real food, you're blown out of the water. But they put in front of us, I'd eaten for breakfast every day, condensed milk and oats. and so they put that in front of us. And it was this moment of like, we looked at each other, so that's, that was the one thing, but, tremendous time. I think, I have other travel stories, it's like I've been to all over the world, but, I think that's one that stands out.
What's the craziest thing you bought for any kind of crypto?
Craziest thing I've bought for any kind of crypto. Shoot. Honestly, probably some NFTs. I think no. So there was an NFT that was a picture of numbers, and I spent probably $7,000 on the picture of numbers. At the time, it seemed like a smart idea because people were paying $50,000 for these things. So I thought for $7,000, I had a deal. It was not a deal. It is currently probably not even worth a penny.
You still have it? I still have a NFT that was an entry ticket for the Formula One in Miami for FTX.
Wow.
So
that's classic.
Yeah. I don't think I paid anything for it. I think I got it for opening an account, but it was kind of funny.
That's so cool.
Well, Ice Cool, John Church, Professor Church, it's been great having you here today. How can people follow up with you on the internet if they want to get a hold of you?
Well, on the more crypto native, I'm on Twitter. I'm icecool_ETH. Although if you search for John Church, you can probably reach me there. And then on LinkedIn, you can find me as John Church.
Well, it's been great having you.
Yeah, it's super, super fun to chat and love talking all these things.
Bye for now.
Thanks for joining us in the Sky Lounge. Please like and subscribe to hear more from Tales from the Sky Lounge here and anywhere else you get your podcasts.